Another one of Guru Pathik's replay reviews. Today we're going to be checking out this Razor, Korymon. Random to Razors, he's got a little extra gold at the start. If we're looking at the lineups, we've got pretty mid-game heavy lineup on your team, and they've got also like some mid-game heroes, but also the PL, who you don't have really good counter to. I mean, Shadow Demon's like kind of okay because he can make his own PL armory later. And then like Invoker's got good AoE damage and control, but it's kind of hard to pin down this Phantom Blaster. So if I was looking at this game just from the start, you guys gotta end early or get really big or keep this guy down. So there's like a couple of ways you can win this game. One is by just ending early and just like letting him free farm and do whatever he wants. You know, he won't come online in time for you to win the game. That's like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's kind of like the window before carries start to come online. The other option is just to keep him poor. The way you can do that is by playing aggressively in his lane, not allowing him to farm, and then that can like widen your window, but it's still kind of like a end the game by 35 minutes kind of thing. So we'll check out your game. I don't know which lane you're going. I may be safe. The Basilius makes me think you're going safe. In terms of items, like, you have a little extra gold, and the Basilius is definitely really nice, but maybe I just would have gotten the Ring of Protection, because you can buy the Sobi Mask from the side shop, and maybe you'd want more stats, like two ironwood branches in the, oh, what's the name of that item? A circlet to build into a wand, or maybe like Aquila items kind of thing. Like a lot of what you'll see is like a circlet. So like you can buy this Slipper of Agility from the side shop. So you could go like circlet plus the recipe plus the Ring of Protection and then get regen. Another thing to think about when you're buying items is like who you're going up against in lane. And so odds are you're probably going to end up against like a Bane bottom, which means you're probably going to want a lot of regen. And I'm okay with your movement here at the start of the game. I think what I'd prefer is, like, this is pretty common just to come up here and like contest the rune as 3. So I think that's okay. But I think as a safe laner, like, you want to make the life hard on the off laner. And I think walking up here just to scope out if they're trying to place wards and where they might be helpful. Usually that's kind of like a support thing to do. But it also kind of informs you whether or not you're going to get wrapped around here on the top rune gank. Because there are many of deaths that'll happen when like someone like you, for example, goes for this rune and like 2 heroes come out here and you retreat this way rather than retreating this way, and then bam, you just run into a bottom and bottom kills you. So it's also like a helps you take the top rune kind of thing. Also, when you're waiting for the rune, wait up here. Don't wait down here. Because if you wait down here, if there's someone standing on this hill, for example, they can see you. But if they're not, they can't. So it's like a minor thing. And then like come out early. They end up not contesting, so all of that stuff I told you doesn't matter at all. But it could matter, right? And when you play a game, you know, you do the little things right every single game, because you never know which game it's going to make a difference. Yeah, but it looks like you and Shadow Demon are top. Your Viper is in the off lane, and you've got Invoker mid. Okay, so you're going to put some pressure out on this Viper, or on this PL with the Viper and the Tusk. So Witch Doctor's up here. It's not what I expected. So when you're kind of confused as to what the lanes are, sometimes you can check to see like who's shown up in their lanes early. Like when Witch Doctor shows up, and obviously Bane's here now too. But you know, sometimes like certain heroes will give away their positions. So Lena's mid makes sense. PL is shown bottom, which like makes sense. And like Witch Doctor's here, which is really weird. And so I think I would play defensively just until I figured out like where their supports are, because Witch Doctor being here is highly indicative of Bottom being here too. And Bane being here, because like why would you Witch Doctor offlane? It's just really odd. Because like right now, if Bottom is here, for example, he could just cask you. Bane walks up, sleeps you, you get arrowed, you just die. So like you're super out of position right now, and you did it for no last hits, right? Like risky positioning for no benefit. And sometimes in Dota you gotta take risks, but I don't think, at 30 seconds on the first creep wave it's worth taking a risk. Bane just TP'd bottom, so now you're fine. Right, because you can see him on the minimap. So now, bottom was there. I think they could have just killed you, to be frank. But maybe they were worried about Shadow Demon being there. Who knows? So you take Plasma Field at 1. It's pretty common for Razors to take Static Link at 1. And you've missed a couple of last hits. Razor is freaking impossible to last hit with. So I'm not going to, be mad at you for that. But this is another reason to get a little bit more stat heavy build early, is that the Basilius is nice. It does give you damage, so that is true. But finishing a Wraith Band would give you more damage and maybe help you last hit early. Here, since you're playing as a Razor, I'd like to see you just walk up and Static Link him. Because they've kind of committed that it's an offlane Witch Doctor. And Witch Doctor is pretty scary. But even if you link him and you steal 7 damage, you're hurting his ability to farm. And so I think, although they changed the way Link works, it now pulses every second rather than pulsing every half second. So you can get 3 damage off of your level 1 Link. But the point is that Razor is kind of like this lane dominator. And you're not really playing him as such if you're not using his lane domination skill. This costs no mana, because part of the reason you bought a Basilius in the early game, so you could spam your spells. So you're not taking advantage of the build that you built. Now I may disagree with you with kind of your opening item build, but if you build something and you use it for a reason, then I'm perfectly fine with it. But currently this Basilius is just kind of useless. Right? You're not using it to push, you're not using it to regen mana. You're just using it as 6 extra damage, and you could have more HP, you could have more other items instead of that. So here you kind of waste your Link, or your Plasma Field, but you almost get the kill. This is a coordination thing between you and Shadow Demon, and some of it's because he has pretty good positioning, and Shadow Demon walks this way, Shadow Demon should walk around this way. But if you Link before he disrupts, you can actually kill him. And I think if you'd use your spells better here, so you wasted your Plasma Field, because I don't know if you were expecting him to disrupt, but one thing about Razor, and this helps you finish off kills, is that the Plasma Field actually gives you vision. So if you were chasing this guy right here, you could Plasma Field right here and you'd be able to see him and right click him. And it's how you get that last auto attack off when you're diving someone under the tower, and it can make the difference between someone living or dying. I think if he just hit your Plasma Field, he would have died because of the Soul Catcher. But that's the way to use Plasma Field when you're diving a tower. And so now at 3 minutes your Basilius is starting to get value because you've used spells and you're regenning mana. So now it's okay. But you're pretty focused on your laning phase. That's fine. First 3 minutes, don't really expect much more. You want to get aggressive on him. I think what you're going to want to do is, if you want to get aggressive, you got to get boots. Because boots are... having a movement speed advantage over another hero is a big deal. And here you kind of mess up your equilibrium. So this is a really small thing, but it makes a big difference. It doesn't make a big difference immediately, and I think that's why people will occasionally miss it. So this range creep was attacking you, right? It attacked you once there because of your movement, and then it died first because of that. And now this range creep is attacking you and you don't de-aggro it. So what's going to end up happening is this creep is going to die, and now there's a huge creep advantage on your side. So this wave, your wave is now going to push, and there's nothing you can do in terms of denying or last hitting to prevent this. You have to pull. That's really the only way to get around it. And I don't know if the pull has been worded. Probably has been worded. So pulling this way isn't an option. You're going to have to pull this way to fix the equilibrium, and all that's going to end up happening is you're just going to end up feeding Witch Doctor experience in a lane where you don't need to feed him experience. Shadow Demon Razor is extremely strong, and this guy got a lot of levels early because there was a tri-lane up there, but you kind of want to just deny him getting levels as well. He has boots too, so your odds of killing him are lower. The boots advantage is how you get a lot of kills. But you kind of have two main ways to play Razor. I'll talk about this just in general. The two main ways are kind of like the mid push them down, mid game aggression kind of Razor, and that's you know, like where you build Aquila or mech or those kinds of items, and you go Ags, and you hit towers, and you're kind of like the frontliner. You play them sort of like an SF or a DK, those kinds of heroes. That's like one major style, and then the other major style is like not as common. It's more of a carry Razor, which is like a farming carry Razor. And you see Midas a lot on those Razors, and they don't usually go for Ags. They go for like Sanj and Yashas and ACs and those kinds of items to help them carry in the late game. But it's just something to be thinking about, like which style of Razor do I want to be playing this game? And like given their lineup, you might want to play the more aggressive style. But if you play the more aggressive style and it like doesn't pan out, then you're gonna wish you went a little greedier. But do you see what I mean? Now the Witch Doctor's getting free experience, and you're also like not getting farm. And it's all just because of the small like creep equilibrium mistake earlier. And again, like I think you're using the plasma field just the wrong way. Like you want to save plasma field. Right now it's just pushing. Shadow Demon's pulling. Okay, so you use the plasma field to push. I'm okay with that. Here I would just be auto-attacking. And the reason I would be auto-attacking is that your wave's getting denied right here. Okay, you got all these last hits in her tower. You missed one because you pre-hit this guy when you didn't need to. So that's pretty good. Viper looks like he's owning it up bottom. But you've just kind of been farming away. And, you know, this lane started out pretty hard for you guys, but the last 4 or 5 minutes haven't been very hard. And this, like, Witch Doctor has kind of gotten a lot out of it. Bane with the sleep. Bane then wakes you up. Switch to strength threads. It's good. So Shadow Demon kind of dies there. But one thing about, you know, the playing aggressively and just walking up and linking him is if you just walk up and link the Witch Doctor, then he always thinks the Shadow Demon's there. So you're basically always playing like there's a Shadow Demon behind you. And it can actually free up the rotation for your support to go do other things. Viper has a 7-minute mech. That is crazy, dude. I guess he's got a mango, so he is thinking about the mana concerns. 7-minute mech, though. What the heck? It's crazy. But, like, this is a good time to, like, sort of update yourself on what's going on in the game. And it seems like you're doing so. Viper went top. And I don't know which way you're going. You're going back top as well. So this is like a small thing. But when you think about farm is something that's like divided as your team, and your team chooses how much farm there is to be on the map. And like currently you're kind of lost as to where to go, mostly because Viper's now in the top lane. Like just rotate to replace him in the bottom lane. Right? Like you can play the same aggressive role against this PL that the Viper is playing against the PL. And Viper may be interested in pushing down the top tower. So maybe like if you decide to rotate top, do that. But currently you're just kind of like running around, not sure what to do. I like that you stacked. But the PL, the problem, right? We're gonna call him the problem because that's what he is this game. And you know your game is kind of gonna be focused around that hero is farming bottom versus a Tuskar who can't pressure him. So you either need to be taking an objective, like pushing this tower, which this is a fine decision. It's just slow. think you're dead here. Nice disruption. Wow, I'm surprised you didn't get Laguna there. Mech kind of saves you. So these guys like rotate, and you're standing up front, you're being aggressive, you're trying to push, so I like that. That's good positioning by you. But if we just look at sort of the game, it's this guy you gotta worry about. And if you're forcing the whole team to rotate, that's great. But then Invoker should be pushing down mid. And that's like team strategy kind of things, and I don't know, you know, it plays a factor. You can only control what you're doing, but just talking about it in general. Okay, plasma field to hit creeps. I think you were trying to hit the Witch Doctor. Missed a last hit and a deny there. When you push, another small thing, turn on your Ring of Basilius. The extra armor actually makes it so that creeps take one extra attack before dying from the tower, so it's actually really significant, because that can mean 5 to 10 seconds longer of hitting the tower, which could be like 300 or 400 damage. You block your own camp here. But we'll kind of take a look at the state of the game, because I like doing this about every 10 minutes. Is you've been up here farming, and you haven't died at all, but your farm is pretty bad for a safe laner versus an offlane Witch Doctor with a support. And I think it's just because you guys are kind of just misplaying the lane. You could have gotten a kill on him early, but you kind of misused your plasma field, so that's kind of like a mistake. And then I would have liked to have seen you rotate against this PL, and then maybe just try to push in smaller groups while pressuring the PL. Like, I understand the idea of getting an early mech and like wanting to push down a tower, but pushing down full HP towers is usually really hard. So what you want to do most of the time before you push down full HP towers is, instead of grouping up as 5, like this is an early game thing, in the early game you want to just like kind of split up if you want to push towers, and you just push the wave and then you chip it down to like this point, and then when it's at this point then you group up as 5 and take the tower, rather than like if you guys went as 5 against this tower, what would happen is what happened topped. All 4 of the non-farming late game heroes would show up, so the Lina, the Witch Doctor, the Bane, and the Potom, and they would just defend it at half HP, and then your like 5-man grouping just gave PL free farm. So those are like strategical decisions that I don't think you're thinking about too much. Like now this is good. They're gone, push the wave. Witch Doctor casts you. What a dick. And I think some of this is, you know, you're kind of struggling with what items to build on Razor, because you've got a Viper, and Viper fulfills a very similar role to Razor in a lot of ways. Or Razor fulfills a lot of similar roles to Viper, which is that mid-game push sort of Razor, or mid-game push sort of hero. And I think you should be defaulting to like kind of a greedier build, which is more along the lines of like Midas, Sanjin Yasha, those kinds of things, and like looking to be the late game carry that's like really hard for them to deal with. Another interesting item in the late game on Razor is like a Shiva's, because you can use it with your static field and it gives vision. So it's a pretty neat little thing. Has some pretty decent synergy with him. This Witch Doctor's kind of bullying you with his spells. Good tread swapping. Missed a last hit. Okay, so you just run to a defensive position to TP. Seems okay to me. You buy wards for your team. A ward. I don't know why you bought a smoke. I'm trying to think why you bought a smoke. We'll see. Maybe your plan will be revealed to me later. But you're not like a smoke hero most of the time. So you're looking to build straight into BKB. That's okay if you want to end the game. And BKB is obviously pretty good against their team. Pretty much their whole team until Lina gets an eggs. Witch Doctor ult's still kind of a pain for you. So chip away at this tower.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Oh man, what an arrow. Alright, that's bad. So, this fight, some of it is your coordination with your Shadow Demon wasn't as good as it could have been. Because Shadow Demon disrupts and there's like about a 2-second delay before you do anything. Granted, you may not have known that he was going to disrupt, but you could see him on the minimap kind of thing. So he finds him, and he like instantly finds him, but you're sitting here for like 2 seconds. So if you get there a little quicker, maybe your Shadow Demon lives. He probably dies, no matter what. But another thing to keep in mind is like what's going on the map, because it informs you how these engagements are likely to go, kind of thing. So like if you're watching the map, right, bottom is right here. So you can see bottom at 15 seconds, and so what you got to be thinking is that like when Shadow Demon opens on this Witch Doctor here, it's likely this bottom's going to rotate here. You can actually even just see it on the map. And so what that means is, while you can't really see the arrow, right, because of the positioning you're in, you can expect an arrow to come from there. And so I think instead of retreating this direction, I actually would have just retreated into the bottom, because I'm a Razor. I'll just link up the bottom and drop my ult on her, and just fight her, right? And if the only way you die here is if you get arrowed under tower, which is something you're thinking about. Granted, PL also TPs in, which is like really bad for you, because the hero you want to keep down is going to get a kill on you, I think here. I think he gets the last hit. The bottom does. But retreating into where they can TP is kind of the mistake here. You could have reacted a little faster, but this is just like general map awareness kind of things. And I think it's not an easy task to get used to. But the idea is you're constantly refreshing what's going on the map, and it informs you how engagements would happen. Right? The only hero you're expecting to run into here is Potom, and the only other heroes that are going to show up are maybe Lina. Lina's probably going to walk this way, and she's probably going to be about 5 to 10 seconds late. And so, instead of linking up and fighting the Potom, maybe you say, well, Lina was likely to rotate, and so therefore I'm just going to link the Potom to scare her and run. So here you farm. PL messes up his spells. PL dies. Cask is OP as shit. Man, that Cask did so much work versus you in Tusk. So it's probably a good trade for your team. I think if I were Razor there, I would be mad that he put me in the snowball. Because I didn't need to get put in the snowball for you to get the kill. And it just ends up being bad in terms of the Cask. But, I mean, it's a reasonable thing. He must have doppel-walked to farm. Right, like if you had just been running, you probably would have been okay. This Cask just destroys you. So I think this fight, like, you might have died just anyway to the Maledict, I guess it would be. But I think it's just like, you don't have very many items for a 14-minute Razor. Like, at that point you had Strength Treads and you're an Aquila, and now you're opting for a Drums, which is a mid-game item. And it's a fine mid-game item. But if it doesn't pan out, then it's kind of a bad thing. And I don't think I think your team is stronger in the mid game right now. So I think what you want to be aiming towards is more the late game. You checked out PL's items there. I didn't see him though. Ring of Health. So I have no idea what he's building. That's really weird. But he's uber underfarmed right now. So now is kind of the time for your team to start making a move. And what I mean by that is you don't necessarily have to group up as 5 and push all the towers together, but just chip at these outer towers. Like have someone chip away at this tower and maybe push this one as 4. And so then you're grouping up. Because right now it's just free farm space for PL. Maybe have someone contesting the PL and pushes 4. Like you don't necessarily all need to be there. Especially you, because you can just TP in kind of thing. Like play it more like the carry rather than the frontliner. Because Viper's fulfilling that role with the mech. And the carry is the guy who's off split pushing and farming and pressuring the PL, who shows up when his team starts fighting, kind of thing. But you're doing a lot of work in this fight. The Potom Invis did a lot of work too. But there's really not much of a way for them to fight you. Like at all. You guys just ran over him. And so this is just something to think about and like looking at the trade. Right? So in this trade, you get a winning fight, which is good. And so your team net worth goes up probably about 1k, so that's pretty good. And then your XP obviously went up because you won the fight. But you also lost a tier 1 bottom because someone didn't start there and like TP into the fight, which I think could have been you, rather than sort of TPing in immediately just to hit the tower. And so you like that trade. While it looks good for you guys, like the problem is the PL. I think it's still pretty good. Wiping 4 heroes and taking a tier 1. Get some damage on the tier 2. It's probably still okay. I just think it's you didn't have to give up as much as you gave up to get that fight. In this game, because you're looking to sort of end early maybe, instead of buying a drums, you could have gone like for a straight Ags rush, which would have helped you push down the towers. Because you do lack tower damage on your team. It's kind of a thing. Viper's okay versus towers. He's not the best, though. So maybe that would have been a little bit better. Of course, now you're opting for BKB, which is also okay. I just don't like buying BKB. I mean, there are games where you have to buy it. And I think this game might be a game where you have to buy it. But they have so much that, like, goes through BKB. Like, why are you buying it? Because Bane Grip goes through BKB. Death Ward doesn't care about BKB. Lena's stuns obviously do, but if she's building an Ags, which most Lenas do, then it ends up being a problem. You guys group up and take Roche. This is 5-man Dota at its best. The trick with 5-man Dota, though, is just 5-manning is fine, and it works. It wins a lot of games. But it's just making sure you're not giving up too much in the process. So like for this Roche, which takes a long time because you guys are long, that is 10, 11 charges. Wonder how much damage that's going to do. Please pop it. How much damage did that do? Probably nothing because it was a Roche. Alright, that did some damage. What level is that? Level 3? Like, so I guess it did quite a bit of damage. Potom arrow. So, Greaves? I just went straight Greaves. Thought Tusk built Greaves. Yeah, you've got a lot of heroes that like to build the same items. So you got to be a little creative with your item set. Witch Doctor's building eggs. But overall, like, the pushing plan is working okay. It's just that your net worth is falling behind if they're, like, split pushing properly. And PL's getting quite a bit of space. Although he went Vanguard Treads. Bit weird. It's a bit old school. That was like the old school, I'm going to build a Radiance build, which doesn't really suit his style anymore. But like here, you could almost have a completed Ags. And I think the completed Ags right now would actually make a bigger difference in the game than these drums. Like, drums are good for fighting, But what you guys want to be doing is you want to be taking map control because you're the dominant team fight already. Like, you don't need help fighting. Like, drums are items that... Drum's an item that you buy when you need help to fight them, and you have to fight them, or you want to fight them, or you need help with stats. And I think picking an item that has a little bit more of a better active at this point would matter. Like, let's say you farmed a little bit better in your lane, and like you lasted a little bit better in your lane, and then this is about 2k gold, so like you could have a completed Ags for this push right now, and then this tower is just super dead. They may not contest you, so the tower may be super dead anyway, but maybe even like it allows you to go high ground. Although going high ground at this point is pretty risky. Meteor's wasted. You get the tower. Tusk dives kind of far. You're getting sleeped a lot in these fights. Right, but if this was the plan, Ags I think fits this plan very, very well. You guys are just pushing it down. Good for you guys. Like, this is really strong, honestly. You go get an Aegis, you win a big fight at a tier 2, which they shouldn't have fought that. It's mostly a mistake by them, because it's just a fight they shouldn't fight. And like, here's where a lot of people make mistakes. You've basically taken what you needed to take as the offensive team, playing against a team that has really good late game. So there's like no reason to stay. This range axe will fall eventually. Like, and it's not a huge deal. Like, the melee max is obviously a bigger deal when you're taking a lane. And so, like, take it if it's free kind of thing. And, like, right now it's free, so you just take it. But if a big fight, like, comes up here, don't fight it. You just back out. Yeah, like, you even drums to go out, so that's good. So that's, like, good understanding on your part. I'd like to see you TPing out to one of the lanes to farm. And, like, now you're going for Ags. So I like that. BKB also would be good. But I think, like I said, I think this should be an Ags, and then you should be working on your BKB now. But drums ended up being pretty useful. Like, you didn't use the charges for anything, you used it to retreat at the end. But this is good. Like, you've pushed down their racks, and then you all kind of like split up and farm. And so I guess you took the jungle. You had Invoker TP mid, and then Viper TP top. So that's a fine movement too. But we'll take a look at the state of the game, I guess, because you're just kind of farming. State of the game, like, obviously you're up a lane of racks, the bottom lane, which is really good. And I think right now you just kind of want to, like, keep pressing your advantage. The PL has been really underfarmed. He's 0-5, so he's really struggling this game, which is good. Like, he's the hero you're most scared of. And I think, like, you can either just finish your Ags, or you can just go end the game, kind of thing. And maybe like you wait for a certain set of items and then you go end. And the way you end is most of the time when you have a lane of racks, especially the bottom, you kind of want to push top because it's the furthest from bottom, which means that you kind of just like stall outside the base until this bottom wave pushes in, and then one hero defends, and then you take like a 5v4. It's like the easiest way to do it. But they're all chasing after Viper. Viper dodges the arrow like an adeptly. You show up. I don't know if walking in here is the best, but you are manly. You end up dying for it. And I guess it ends up being a wipe for you. But like, this is, you're trading right now instead of just dominating them. There's no way they can win a fight against you if you don't fight in such like a disadvantaged spot. Like, every single fight that's happened thus far this game, you guys haven't had dust, which is a big issue. Like, for you, even, like, carrying dust is a big deal. So, what's going to happen this fight, right? Like, Viper's gripped, and you want to help the Viper. And maybe you go in and you do some damage with your plasma field, and that's okay. And maybe you're just not scared kind of thing, and so that's why you just like run up. But like at this point you see the invis, like running up the hill, you're just going to take a bunch of damage. You have no way to reveal them, right? Unless your Shadow Demon has dust. He has sentries. So like if you're expecting him to sentry, like you need to call it or like ping or something, because like what ends up happening is you just walk up here and you're just tanking a Death Ward and all of Lena's nukes. Now granted, like Invoker kind of backstabs and so does Tusk, so it works out okay from that standpoint. And maybe that's what you're expecting while you're like running up that hill. But I think your death was probably avoidable there and not worth the trade that you got. Like it sounds crazy, right, because it's a 4v2, but you lost your two like primary cores, we'll say. Invoker went mid, so maybe he's like the primary core over Viper. But like I think it's overall a trade that you don't necessarily have to be making. It gets you 2 towers though, so it works out. Like, I think you're playing pretty well this game, to be honest, and I think you are executing that mid-game strat pretty well. Kind of wasted a smoke there. Just put it on the courier, send it to one of your supports. Right? Like, there's no reason to waste a smoke just to run out a little bit faster. Smokes are valuable, especially in the early game. So you kind of have a couple options now as to how to end the game. You could just go fight them because you think you're stronger and end the game, and that's one way to do it. And then the way the fights are going to go is the biggest threat to you guys right now is not the PL because he just doesn't have enough farm. Is mostly probably this Witch Doctor, especially if he finishes an Ags. And so the priority has to be disabling him, which means like you need to be telling your team, like you're not a disabler, so that's not your role in the fight. But your team needs to know that that's the primary hero to worry about, so that Tusk can like save his snowball, for example, to get them, or Invoker like invokes a tornado or something along those lines. Although he's exhort, so it'd be kind of hard for a tornado to hit the hero. But again, you guys are like trying to end the game, and you're not necessarily trying to end the game on this push, but like what you want is someone top who's pushing this wave, and then this wave will eventually push in. And maybe you go, so like the choice is go mid or go top. This tower is full HP, this tower is full HP as well. So I would prefer to go top just because it's further from bottom, like I was saying earlier. Strategically, it's like not as good of a fighting position because this ramp isn't as wide as the mid ramp, which means that like AoE spells, sort of like Vacuum or LSA, are a little bit more effective, or even like Witch Doctor ulti. But I just like it strategically for the further away from bottom thing. This is also where like items like Urn are really helpful. Urn is like a really good tower sieging item in the early game because they throw out their nukes and spells or whatever, and like whoever's up front is allowed to go in, kind of thing. Like just turn on your ulti. Like this is why you buy Ags, so you could turn it on and hit the tower with it. So here you got kind of bursted down. So you basically ended up taking a 5v5 fight up their hill, which is not what you want to be doing when you're ahead, right? You control this game. Take fights that you want to take. Right? There's 3 showing bottom right now. So like this push is good at the start, but you guys just stick around too long. Right? So there's 2 showing there right now. Just turn on your ulti, like immediately. Just hit this tower down. You're just trying to chip at it, and like Razor's ulti is actually really short in terms of cooldown. It's like 70-second cooldown, so it's not that long. It's like relatively short, I would say. It's in the middle. The duration is what makes it feel like it's pretty long because it's a 30-second duration. So just like turn it on. The uptime on it's about 50%. Like turn it on, and then what you want to be doing is you're kind of grouped up with your Viper here. And in terms of positioning, that makes you vulnerable to LSA because both of you don't have BKB. So I'd like to see you kind of split up, one of you here, one of you here. Take advantage of the fact that you're pushing the mid lane. And then when they invis there, I would just run rather than fight. Because you're not, like, it's choosing the right fight rather than choosing the fight that's best for them. Right? Like, you turned on your ulti and you ran in. And I think just retreating and pulling them out of their base, like, a fight out here is so much more beneficial for your team than a fight in here. One of you is going to get burned down by the Lina ulti kind of thing. But again, you're taking a 5v5 when you have a lane of Rex. There's no reason to ever take a 5v fight again. You know, you get good harass on the tower. You lose 2 heroes. But, like, none of you are farming. You're feeding away a lot of gold. Like, I don't know. That was about a 3k swap. Like, there's no way you should lose this game at this point. This is like you're so far ahead that I just don't think it's possible for you to lose if you play it right. And the way you're playing it wrong is just by not taking advantage of their map movements and then just chipping at the tower. Because you're just worried about the objectives. And if you want to fight, you want them to take a bad fight. You don't want to take a fight, any fight, because, like, that's a bad fight for you, fighting up their hill into Potamult with no invis detection. Granted, you just got kind of blown up by the Lina. In terms of items for you, Lina ulti is probably like the biggest issue for you right now, and so I'd be checking to see if she has an Ags, which, like, we know because we're spectating, and I'm not sure if your team knows. You might know after that other fight, but BKB actually doesn't help you that much versus Lina ult. It does help you against, you know, like Maledict and some of the other spells on their team, but you could even just build HP at this point, like even a heart. Granted, you're not necessarily going to finish a heart anytime soon, so maybe it's bad from that aspect. You could even just go like casual cloak. It's a little weird. But, like, your sort of fail on that push in the mid fight essentially gave them 3 or 4 minutes to farm and get items and get big. And so now you're all congregating bottom. So this is like wasted map space. And I'm not, like, this isn't a thing that's entirely your fault because it's your team too, right? Like, your whole team just wants to group up as 5 and push because that's what you guys are good at. But, like, why bottom of all the lanes, right? You've already taken a Rex here, right? Someone should be top pushing that. Someone should be mid pushing that. Ideally, it's you or Razor because you're, like, tough to gank, tough to pull up, and then your supports just kind of chill behind you. It looks like now you're waiting for Roche. And that's also a very reasonable plan. Waiting for Roche is, like, the safer way to go high ground. But it's slower. And I think your push mid would have been fine if you just focused on the objectives and not actually taking a fight. But you guys will take Roche eventually. It's going to take a while because you don't have a very good Roche lineup. Eye of the Storm does not affect Roche. Looks like you're reading about it to find out. It's really annoying that it doesn't. I think it should. But every time I play Razor, I use it in the Roche pit, and I'm like, it should. This should work. But it doesn't. It's just one of those weird Dota mechanics. So you guys get a free Aegis, and you give it to Invoker. It's an okay Aegis. I'd rather see it on you to be honest. Like Invoker's the sitting in the back mostly and just like throwing out spells. So he's less likely to die. Like last fight, what happened? You got bursted down by Laguna and you died, and then you couldn't use any of your spells. Your team fought without you. And I think, you want that Aegis on someone who's up in the front lines and likely to get Laguna. Like that's what it is. It's basically you're trying to waste Lena's ultimate on the Aegis. And Razor isn't as good of an Aegis carrier as he used to be because of the way Eye of the Storm works. Like Eye of the Storm doesn't persist through death like it used to. But I still think you want it on the frontline tower pusher. You don't want it on the backline magic damage dealer. Even if Invoker is more farmed than you or higher MMR or whatever, like I think you want it on you. And so here we're kind of in the same situation, right? And now you guys are pushing top, so you kind of learn from your mistake. But now you're pushing a tower that's full HP. So the decision to push top was a better decision when both the towers were even HP. But now that this tower is at 300 health, I would actually prefer to push mid. Because you're going to have to siege this tower and be like pretty crafty about not taking a fight but yet doing tower damage at the same time. Dodging arrows, dodging, nightmares into stuns and that kind of thing for a little bit longer. And so I think now at this point you switch to the mid tower. Like, I'm trying not to be I hope I'm getting my point across, but when you're playing these 5-man games, you're just grouped up and it's just strategy as a team. So here, throw out your nuke. Like again, I would just be turning on my ultimate immediately. Just chip at the tower. Chip, chip, chip. Invis, back. No reason to fight. Like, they're not engaging. All of this time your ultimate could have been hitting that tower. Like, you're saving it to fight, and that's not why you build Ags on Razor. You build Ags on Razor so that your ultimate can hit the tower. Like, that probably would have been like 500 damage on the tower, which is also the reason I would have preferred for you guys to push mid, because then you would have taken out the mid tower and then it would just be an open barracks kind of thing. Here you're like half HP, and you get arrowed, which is unfortunate. You're gonna walk up and get Laguna, aren't you? Yeah. Fight's over. So when you're half HP like that, just back and heal. Especially if you don't have healing items. Like, I really would have liked to see an Urn this game. And do you see what I mean? Like, when you die, the fight kind of ends in a lot of ways, and it does let this Invoker live, but his second life wasn't actually used for fighting, which was part of the reason why the Ags on him, or the Aegis on him is almost wasted. Like, you want to use it on a hero that comes back and fights and does things, and usually dies first. But I think you should have just backed there. Like, when you got arrowed and your team was able to protect you when you got arrowed to disengage, but you're at like 800 HP at that point, you're literally just dead to Laguna if you walk up. So I think you just back, right? Don't take bad fights when you're the one picking the fights. Like, that's all this game is about a lot. Early game, you were trying to force them to fight, and that was good. They ended up basically not fighting and then fighting in a bad position under their tier 2, and that basically got you a Rax. But the last two team fights have been, you guys had the option to disengage, but the first fight you basically just charged uphill into a Potamol, and then the second fight, the one up here, you basically just charged in at 800 HP. With no Aegis on you. Like, if you'd had the Aegis there, I would have been perfectly fine with you running in there. But like, it sounds crazy, but when you get like a huge gold advantage like you had, so like 15k, it's almost just more important to just not die. Because if you don't die with that kind of an advantage, you're probably not going to lose, simply because like your advantage is usually just going to keep growing. Like, you have the full map to farm, If you guys wanted to, you could just sit one person in the mid lane, one person in the top lane, and then everybody else just splits up and farmed, and do that for like 15 minutes and be like 30k ahead. It win that way. Completely fine. It's a little weak against their ganks, right? Because if they gank the guy in the mid lane or gank the guy in the top lane, he's got no backup. So usually you do that when you have more elusive cores. Like, your cores aren't exactly elusive. But if you had like an Ember, for example, it's sometimes like you'll do that with like an Ember and a Storm. You'll just sit Storm mid and you'll sit Ember top, and then the other three, the supports just farm, and then the supports end up turning into cores. So here Viper gets aired. He's just dead. You just run. Because you don't want to turn a lost fight into more deaths. So next item you're going for is Sanjin Yasha. I think that's okay. Sanjin Yasha, like, the reason people build Sanjin Yasha is like the same reason people build drums, right? It's because you want to fight a little bit earlier and fight a little bit more often. At 35 minutes, you don't want to be buying Sanjin Yashas. You want to be buying a, like, Heart, for example. Heart would allow you to siege, because then you could just walk up, go to like half HP with your ultimate, and then walk back, and your Heart will heal you up to full. Something that has more utility kind of towards that late game. Shivas would be good for like clearing PL illusions, and the slow is actually relevant versus PL illusions, because when they're slowed, you can just run away from them and they can't actually hit. BKB would also be an option, because it makes you immune to everything except for Laguna, and then it basically forces the Lina to Laguna you, so you're limiting the ways in which they can win the fights. Like, currently they can win the fight by Lagunaing you or Viper at the beginning of a fight with like a good arrow into like nuke combo. And if you buy BKB, you basically eliminate the option for them to blow up Viper and win the fight that way, because they'll have no way to kill you. So I think BKB maybe would be better than that. Shivas would also be okay. Other items, I really like Heart. Let's see if there's any other items that are legitimate. Dessa is good for pushing towers, but AC would be good for pushing towers too, but they don't have, like, they have a lot of magic damage. You buy AC for defensive physical armor more than the offensive capabilities of AC, so I don't think that's the item. Yeah, I think BKB or Heart. So here, more pushing. Like, every time you fail one of these pushes, it gets harder, right? Some weird map control by you. You get gripped. Nice disruption. Sentries. BKB on Lina. That Witch Doctor ulti did so much work. So, like, now they're strong enough to fight you at 37 minutes. Took them 37 minutes to basically be stronger than you in fights. Now I think they hold the upper advantage. You guys are still strong. It's actually kind of even, to be perfectly honest. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the net worth is, like, mostly even. No, it's still an 8k. So you guys are still ahead. But fights are a lot more even than they need to be. One thing I didn't do at the start of this replay is I didn't actually read your comment. I read it before I started this game, but I didn't read it during the video. But your comment was during this game is I was the Razor in this game. We got off to a good start with Viper getting a quick mech, which we saw, 7 minutes. It was ridiculous. And we had a plan to push in the mid game and finish the game early. We tried breaking the high ground multiple times, got shut down time and time again. I felt I was out of position most fights, or that my team was out of position. My itemization was also quite weak. I ended up buying a drums and Aquila. Didn't seem to do much use. We did end up winning, but the game had many key points, and I didn't ever feel like we were going to win. Like, I felt like this game was unlosable for you guys after you took that first lane at 25 minutes. Usually when you take a lane at 20 minutes, you don't lose those games. I'd like to look in sieging points in the game and the decision making for who gets the Aegis when planning to push. I'd also like to look at itemization for myself and the team. So a lot of what I talked about is what you've talked about, and I'm kind of just talking about what I see as it happens. But like biggest thing is about picking fights, and when you are the team who can pick fights, you just have to make sure you pick the right fights, you know. And I think you picked a lot of bad fights in a row when you didn't need to. Like they need to dive out and kill you to catch up in gold. That's like how they need to come back. They need to be smoking, they need to be killing you kind of thing. Whereas you guys can just sit on the map, siege their towers, and get back and buy items that allow you to play that way, like heart or urns. Like you could tell your support just get an urn, and then you have heals and that kind of thing. The solar crest is good for sieging, so I like that item. Although Tusk built it, yeah, I like that item on Tusk. Force staff would also be good for people who get arrowed. So maybe like a force staff and an urn. They're just items that kind of fit the style of what you're doing. So here you're taking Roche again. They're not contesting. You can tell because PL's bottom. You also have a ward, so you have something associated with it. Here, Viper ended up taking the Aegis, which is good. I like Viper taking the Aegis here. I think Cheese is better on you just because of the interaction with Eye of the Storm now. Despawning. And if you get, you know, gripped into Laguna, you can usually get this off. You're also a little tankier than Viper, I think. Yeah, Viper doesn't have as much HP as you. Built a Necro book. It's a bit weird. Don't do this. Don't buy Necro book at 35 minutes. That item is the strongest early. Don't buy a late game. Just feeds gold. Deso, again, okay. I still would be looking towards BKB or... BKB, Shivas, or Heart. One of those three. Shivas to help you fight the PL. That's the reasoning behind that. BKB just to mitigate their stuns and make them harder for you to kill you. So it makes you just a bigger threat. That forces Laguna on you. And then Heart to just help with sieging. And then you become the sieging hero. You just walk up, you siege, you go down to half HP, you retreat, you heal up to full, you do it over and over again. And then eventually you put them between a rock and a hard place, right? Come fight us, or we're going to take your base. And you must fight up a hill to get us, kind of thing. Rather than us running into you, into an invis like Ag, Scepter, Witch Doctor, ulti. And Cask, and all of those spells. You don't want to be running into them. So you're getting your Deso, you're probably pinging your team, telling you to wait for it. But this is good, right? You've consolidated the map. And what I talk about is like the map's sort of like a lever, right? And if you draw the lever right down the river, that's an even game, right? And what you want to do is you kind of want to push it such that this is now where the center line of the map is, because you have this entire area to farm. Whereas they're just kind of stuck in their base. And this is good, right? This is a situation where like you lost that huge fight, but because you've kind of pushed them into their base, your net worth is only going to climb during that time. Like we haven't fought since then, but since they're trapped in their base, they're not accruing as much gold as you are because they don't have their jungle to farm. They don't have they don't have either jungle to farm. They're also down a lane, so they only have 2.5 lanes to farm. Whereas you have all 3 lanes and you have both jungles. And so like that's like a starve them out strategy. And you can do that with early game lineups too. They used invis, I would just back. No reason to fight. Wait for the invis to go down. And then here, just wait for somebody to go defend top. Just wait. Or go defend bottom, right? There's a hero down there. Walk up, pop your ulti, do some damage, walk back. Fighting into the creep wave again.
Radiant's top tower is falling.
But do you see what I mean? Like, they can't chase you. Like, this is where you wanted to fight them 20 minutes ago. Laguna, wrecked. They're a little bit more ballsy now. So let's talk about like micro positioning in team fights because you want me to cover that. So here, big fight. You walk up the hill. I like your positioning here. This positioning is fine, especially because well, you don't have cheese anymore. You gave up the cheese. Who'd you give the cheese to? Did you just eat it? Oh, you give it to Tusk. I think this is a mistake. You should just give this to Tusk. Carry the cheese. No reason for you not to have it, especially when you're up front. Like, that's how you win the game a lot of ways. If you want to be this aggressive too, like even just put an Aegis on you. Like I said, it's not perfect with your ultimate, but who cares, right? You're the frontliner. Make them waste Laguna on you, and then you come back to life and you just ulti and win the game. So this positioning's fine. They ulti here, just retreat. Just run. Run to here. Tell your whole team to run, right? Because they're going to want to fight while that's up. Instead, and you kind of hang out back here, which is okay. They throw all their nukes. And like right here, Viper should just be hitting the base. Right? He should be up here hitting the base, or you should be up there hitting the base. You use your nuke, you hit the base. Like, then you just back. They Nightmare Viper, then they grip you. Shadow Demon has a really nice ulti here. But here, BKB is used on Lina. Don't charge in. Right? Just retreat. Especially with Death Ward down. Just retreat. There's no reason to fight.
Radiant's top tower is falling.
Like, you're kind of staying because your Viper is staying. And Viper may be stuck. But like right there, you could have disengaged. And instead you kind of walked in and got stunned. I don't know what Tusk was doing. But like there, if you'd had the cheese too, you might have lived. Because you could have cheesed before you walked back in at half HP. Because like you're the Laguna target pretty much. Like especially with no Aegis on, or with an Aegis on the Viper. Like you're 100% the Laguna target. Which means you use the trees in a different way than you would use it against another team. Right? Like a team without burst, so against like an Alchemist with Radiance and, you know, a bunch of damage over time heroes, we'll say. Like, what are more damage over time supports? Like a Shadow Demon support or an Ogre even. Like they're more dotty. Those guys you can like let your HP get down to like a quarter and then use the cheese. But in this game, like the instant you drop to like half HP, just pop the cheese. Right? Because you're just trying to bait, and you're like all of these fights are you want them to waste spells so that when you walk up high ground they can't fight you because they have no spells, and then you just disengage when they use those spells, right? And like the Aegises were all about getting Lina to waste her Laguna because it's like the best skill they have for killing you or Viper. It's 950 pure damage, and both of your heroes are built around, like Viper especially, reducing damage taken to them and being tanky. So here you swap out your Aquila for a cheese, which is good. You sell your Aquila. This is like a small thing. This is like a gold management thing. But if you look at your gold, right? Currently you have 450 reliable gold, and then you have 700 unreliable gold. When you sell your Aquila, it's all sold back as unreliable, but your death cost is actually 540. So what'll happen if you die? Let's say you die here, for example. Like, I don't know. Lina walks up, Lagunas you. She's got a refresher. She refreshes 3 times, kills you. Whatever. I don't know how it happens. You'll just lose all the gold from selling your Aquila because it's all unreliable gold. Whereas if you just kept it in your inventory, you would lose less gold. So here, just turn on your ulti.
Are fortified.
They glyph. There's no reason to be standing up here, right? You're here to take buildings, not to fight. They grip you. You get ulted again. So not much you could have done there, except for, you know, disengage when when spells are used. Like glyph, for example, was one. 3 heroes died for 1. This is a really interesting game, honestly. We'll see who wins. This PL has like no items. Like, you guys, he was poor. Looking at the net worth. That is a poor PL for 46 minutes. He really did not split push well. I think a better split pushing PL and you guys would have had a lot of trouble this game. Because you really have no catch. You have Tusk. He's okay catch. And Invoker's okay catch too. But he didn't build catch items. Tusk kinda did. Blink's a good catch item. Oh, pause. Bum. Alright, back to the game. I'm kind of going to fast forward a bit because I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot. And I'm not giving you like new tips for how to play the game. And you're also dead. So I just don't want to repeat myself too much. So here you're like starting to defend. This is the first fight in 47 minutes that you've been defending, pretty much. Here Laguna gets used on someone that isn't you. Tusk isn't even back right now. This is like another not using plasma field for the vision. Like the vision in the late game is what it's about. Even in the early game, the vision is super important. Here you kind of use it for damage early, and you don't actually hit any heroes with it. But like right here, if PL jumps, like he obviously jumped over here. If you'd had a plasma field to see him, you could probably have killed him. Might have been close. But that's like a big feature of this hero, is using plasma field for vision. I also just want to see you spamming out this ultimate more. I mean, it has 50% uptime. It's ridiculous how much uptime this spell has. But if you don't use it, then it's got way less uptime. Like, I'd probably bet to say this game, your ultimate has been up, say like 20% of the time, if that, maybe 15. And if you watch, like Arteezy used to be, he's the best Razor player out there, I think. That's sort of the hero he became really famous on playing back for EG in the day. He uses it for everything, like farming ancients, ult. It's fine, right? Like, this skill is all about using it. Like right here, you're farming ancients, just ulti, right? You're not going to push the base in the next 50 seconds. Like, just ulti. Helps you clear this out faster. Then go farm the jungle with it. Just ulti, you know? It's not a mana void, or like a grip, or a black hole. You shouldn't think of it that way. We're pausing for Tusk. Hopefully he comes back. Oh. More farming. Tusk shows up. That's good. Like, I think the biggest points for you this game is just posturing more aggressively in the laning phase. Could have gotten you a lot, especially once you realized that Bane was gone. Early on, maybe not. Like the very, very start, when you don't know where Bane and Potom are, then you play defensively. But for the 6-7 minutes, you basically didn't get as much farm as you should have, and you gave the Witch Doctor more than he should have gotten. So you could have owned harder in the early game, essentially, in your lane. Here, like, just pop your ulti. Other just general things, like using the plasma field for vision is a big one. Using static link to hinder their ability to farm is a big one. Using Eye of the Storm just on cooldown, like when you walk up hills, just as like tower chip damage, like, and then just like sitting back and not fighting during the cooldown would be a big thing. But the biggest thing is just fight selection. Fight selection, fight selection, fight selection. We'll see if more things come up. I think your item build could have been a little bit better, but I also think you're not thinking in the mentality of just disengage. Like, so I don't even think like Heart's on your radar, to be honest. And I think it's just because you're not thinking that way. Like, you're thinking we have to win a fight in their base to end the game, and that's just not true, especially up 1 Rax. If you didn't have the Rax advantage, then yes, that's probably true. You probably have to win a fight in their base to take their Rax. But being up a Rax, that's not true at all, because eventually the chip damage will kill them. It's sort of like playing versus... You're playing a style that's very similar to how Nature's Prophet split pushes, which is that every single time the other team does anything, he's just chipping away at that tower, and then eventually it dies. And that's kind of what you're doing, except you're doing it as like 4 or 5 heroes, rather than doing it as solo Nature's Prophet. Yeah, BKB. So Invoker wasted his BKB. The other reason I like Heart is that it's just raw HP, and raw HP is how you counter Lina, not BKB. Because she's the biggest issue for you this game. I mean, you die at every fight because you get Lagooned. Hell, even a Lincoln's. Be a little weird. They have a lot of single target to remove it. So that's kind of like the downside for it. Or the disagreement for it. But here, this is fine. Like, you're not planning on pushing top. Did he build Battle Fury on PL? What? Alright, his item build is absolutely terrible. So PL does not benefit from plus damage at all. So literally this Battle Fury, it gives his illusions cleave, but his illusions cleave for like 15 damage after reduction. That is so bad. So here, that's fine. You use Plasma Field for vision there. I like that. You guys choose to run up and fight. You get a BKB off. You've already eaten the Laguna, which is good. You end up living through it. Cheese ends up winning you the game. But do you see how like she used her ultimate and didn't kill you? It's kind of a waste. You end up getting a Rex for it. They're buying back like crazy, and they don't need to. Yeah, it's PL and Tuskar just fighting away. So they wipe you guys again. Yeah, it's a crazy game. I'm like expecting you guys to win so many times, but it just isn't happening. One thing that's really nice about BKB and Lincolns, so this is also kind of like a playing versus Doom, or heroes that have ultimates that you want to block 100%, because you're getting gripped and then Laguna at every single fight. One thing you can do is you can build Lincolns and build BKB. This is like the 100% surefire way to not get doomed, not get Laguna, not get gripped for 10 seconds. Because the only way to remove Lincolns while you're BKB'd is a spell that pierces magical immunity, of which they only have 2 this game. They only have Fiend's Grip and they only have Laguna. So you will guaranteed block one of those spells. I'm not saying that that's like necessarily the item you want to go this game. But if that's like a huge issue for you in a game, like if Doom is targeting you and dooming you every single time, or, I mean, this game, you get gripped every single fight. Their plan is Nightmare the Viper because he built a Necro Book and a Crimson Guard rather than damage items. Whereas, like, your items, even though they're not perfect, like, you're scary at this point in the game. Whereas, like, Viper's, like, basically a support because of his item selection. Like, Greaves don't even give him damage or anything. I'm fine with Greaves. I think it's good. It's like a tankier item, but there's no damage associated with it. Like, this Viper is not scary at all. He hits like a kitten at this point in the game. Whereas like you're like really like you're a carry. Like, and you built like a carry. Even though you built like mid-gamey items. And you could have built like bigger items or different items. I think like you're scary to the point where they're only worried about you. So even in this case, maybe like one of your teammates gets a Lotus Orb or a Lincoln Sphere, puts it on you, you BKB, like, that's 8 seconds of them not being able to do anything. And then most of the time what'll happen is that heroes can't, like, their team can't afford to just watch you hit their tower for 8 seconds, so they'll actually just use their spells on other heroes. You know, in the Deso here, like, it's okay. Late game Deso, there's like a pretty good little statistical thing. It's actually just a Reddit thread. And it's actually a Reddit thread about the math on Desolator versus Deso. And I'll put the link in the description of this video. But they end up picking off a couple of heroes mid. But if you just search Google for this link, it's a Dota 2 link. It's the math on Desolator versus Deso. And it just talks about like how Deso works as an item and what makes the item good and at what armor thresholds it would be good or it wouldn't be. You guys are defaulting to split pushing because you can't fight them anymore. And basically what you find is that heroes that have over 15 armor, it's better to buy a Desolator. And what I want you to take from this is it's better to buy a Daedalus, excuse me. And what I want you to take from this isn't necessarily that Deso's a bad item, that Daedalus was the item you should have purchased this game. Because I don't even think Daedalus is on your radar this game. What I want you to take from that is that buying this Desolator is basically buying like 30 damage that gives you nothing else at this stage of the game. Like, this item is really bad at this stage of the game, especially against heroes like PL, who has 20 armor, 25 armor, and Lena, who's, well, it's good against Lena. So there's that. Pretty good against, it's like not very good against Witch Doctor. It's got a plate mail. It's like okay versus Bane, not ideal, but it's bad versus Potom. So here you end up killing the Lena while I'm like chit-chatting about Deso and don't buy Deso in the late game. And you just walk up and beat the crap out of her. So we'll check it out. Yeah, half HP.
Got it.
That was funny. She used no spells. You didn't even have to BKB. Yeah, she just wasn't paying attention, I think. That's fine, though. Take the free kills when you can get them. Give you a lot of gold, too. Wicked sick, 1,000 gold. So, basically, this game has kind of been turned around by the Invoker, who just ratted. Like, 100% ratted. He lost a fight mid, and then Invoker ratted. But do you see what I mean? Like, now you're in the situation where you've got to trade heroes, essentially, for the racks, when before you didn't necessarily have to do that. But that's like a good example of making them take a bad fight and then taking advantage of it by just hitting buildings. The reason why, like, part of the reason I like pushing top, especially when you have a racks, is that fighting up hills is really hard because of the vision advantage. And there's hills on both top and bottom that you can force them up most of the time. And it's like, not only is it good for the vision, but it's also good because they have to walk through like a narrow opening. So if you have a spell that's, you know, reliant on positioning, then this is like a huge advantage. Sorry, I'm like running out of things to talk about this game. Again, like I said, I'm just kind of repeating yourself. At this stage of the game, if the game is even, it becomes like a pick-off war. It becomes who can pick off who. And so what you do is you kind of form a gank squad, and anyone who can't, like, anyone who doesn't help you to kill whoever you're going for doesn't want to be a part of that. This is a really good fight. You're fighting with numbers in a position that's bad for them. This is where I mean Shivas would be really good, because you could Shivas and then his illusions would be slowed. It looks like he just messes up. Dies for it. So your positioning's like okay there. But PL basically dies without buyback, fighting a 2v3, 2v4 outside of his base. So it's just kind of like mistakes everywhere. This game. Dota is a game of mistakes in a lot of ways. You should have just hit the racks. Racks died anyway. So you're good. And you've got buyback. So it's unlikely that they win at this point. If you wanted to, you could just buy back and TP in. It's like risky. Try to end the game. But what you're doing is fine. Just sitting on your buyback and waiting. I think most of the time you're going to win the game from this point. God, it's a long game. I'm just going to fast forward. The safest way to win at this point is to wait for Roche, like every situation. The other thing you want to be writing down is you want to be taking the glyph timings. So you want to be taking the... whenever they glyph, you basically just want to write it down. And it's got a 5-minute cooldown. And so you just know when they have their glyph. Because you don't want to all-out commit to win the game when they have a glyph. Here, you guys are taking the Aegis, which is good. You end up taking none of it. Which I guess is okay. I'd almost rather have the cheese than this Desolator at this point. Or the Aegis even. I think Desolator at this stage of the game is just not a very good item. But you guys take a fight, and sort of on the back of your gold advantage, you just kind of win that fight. But you see what I mean? Like, this Desolator really doesn't do much during your fight. It's good for pushing. The AC is really good, especially because you're just disabled all fight. But the Deso didn't really offer much for you. So I think big takeaways for you are just when you buy an item, buy it for a reason. And I think you do. Like, I think you bought the Desolator with the intent to push buildings and that kind of thing. But the amount of times you hit buildings, like, really didn't matter. But, you know, so that's one thing. Fight selection, fight selection, fight selection is the huge one. You guys ended up winning. But mostly off the back of this PL just dying outside of his base and building really stupid items. Like, if this PL had built Scotty and Butterfly, you guys would have been screwed. Farmed better, pushed the side lanes. I think their group of 4 defended the high ground valiantly for a long, long time. And I think if this guy had just played better, you guys might have lost. But overall, your play was fine. Like, especially in the first 25 minutes. Like, I think you played relatively well. Your laning phase could have been more dominant. You could have lasted a little bit better. Could have pulled more. You could have sort of used TPs to better advantages. But, like, you played well enough to win this game in the first 25 minutes. Like, to stomp this game. But then you just kind of, like, as a team, you made some bad decisions. And, you know, you kind of got to be the voice for your team at points where people are making bad decisions like that. And just talk during chat or type or, you know, use voice communication or those kinds of things. Overall, I hope this was helpful for you. If you're looking to get a replay reviewed by me, shoot me a message in YouTube or on Reddit. And I think that's it. So thanks for watching.